Constructing your very first Champions of Miyandir deck can feel intimidating, but in this video, I'll show you how to do it in just 4 easy steps. This video assumes you've already watched our how to play video, but in case you haven't, here are the 2 rules to keep in mind when building a deck. 1. A deck must have exactly 51 cards, 1 champion card and 50 non-champion cards. 2. A deck can have up to 2 copies of any non-unique card, and up to 1 copy of any unique card. Okay, let's begin. Step 1. Pick your champion. The first step to building a Champions of Miyandir deck is to pick a unique denizen card to be your champion. Every unique denizen has a different way of scoring you points. Find one that encourages a playstyle you like. In this video, I'll be choosing Eldrian, Famed Explorer. Step 2. Pick your alignments. The next step in building a deck is to decide on the deck's alignment. When you're first starting out, I suggest choosing just one alignment, because properly aligning a deck to multiple types can be tricky for new players. Since Eldrian is aligned to green, I'll go ahead and make this a solo green deck. Playing location cards is the most common way to unlock alignment. For a deck with just one alignment, I suggest putting in 10 locations. I'll start with 2 copies of Verdant Path. This card's second ability gives us some control over the top of the deck, making the deck more consistent overall. By the way, most locations come in a set of 5, one for each alignment type. So for example, the card Dangerous Path does the same thing as Verdant Path, except it aligns to red instead. The card Decorated Path aligns to purple, and so on. Next, I'll add 2 copies of Grand Fish Market, because its card draw ability is very reliable in a solo green deck. Then, I'll add 2 copies of Hidden Thicket, because its gold acceleration ability is very useful early in the game. I'll add 2 copies of Statue of the Fierce Hunter to make our denizens more durable. 1 copy of Exploration Vessel, because it comes in handy in situations where the game goes long and we're low on cards, but have plenty of gold to spend. And finally, 1 copy of Isolated Cottage. This card comes in handy if an opponent tries to lock us down by removing our champion's abilities and preventing it from leaving play, effectively neutralizing it. In such scenarios, we can use this to force our champion back into the champion zone, then replay our champion to reset its abilities. In addition to those 10 locations, I'll also add 2 copies of Marked Map. These let us fetch specific locations to suit specific needs, giving the deck some extra versatility. Step 3. Pick your support pieces. Now that the deck has a champion and is properly aligned, it's time to add cards that support the deck's game plan. I suggest putting in around 23 to 25 support pieces. Which cards a deck will benefit from most will depend on its champion. Because this deck is running Eldrian as its champion, it benefits from spamming the board with tons of denizens, so I'll start by adding cards that produce lots of denizen tokens. I'll add 2 copies of Welcome New Settlers, 2 copies of Work the Fields, 2 copies of Traveling Caravan, 2 copies of Child of the Wild, 2 copies of Early Pioneers, and 1 copy of Hermit Beekeeper. I'll also add 2 copies of Diligent Farmer, 2 copies of Treasure Hunter, and 2 copies of Reap the Harvest for some gold acceleration. This will help the deck do more things in the early game. And I'll add 2 copies of Explore the Unknown, 1 copy of Population Growth, 1 copy of Grand Adventure, and 1 copy of Joyous Celebration for some card advantage. This will help us restock our hand so we don't run out of things to do in the late game. Finally, I'll add 1 copy of Wandering Alchemist and 1 copy of Survival Training to buff our denizens and make them less fragile. Take a look at the gold values of the cards I've added. You'll notice that there are a lot of cards that cost 3 or less to play, while there aren't many that cost 4 or more. In general, the more expensive a card is, the more powerful its abilities, but the longer a game has to go before it can be played. So we want a few expensive cards to give the deck some late game presence, but not too many more than that, or the deck's early and mid game presence will suffer. Step 4. Pick your interaction. Now it's time to fill the remaining slots of the deck with ways to interact with our opponents. A properly built deck should be able to remove threats and slow down opposing game plans while assembling its own game plan. I would suggest having 13 to 15 interaction pieces. For this deck, I'll start by adding 2 copies of Killer Bees, 2 copies of Invasive Fungus, and 1 copy of Poison Darts. These cards are great for putting pressure on our opponent's denizens. I'll also add 2 copies of Restraining Order and 1 copy of Battlefield Plague to punish opponents who get too aggressive. Next, I'll add 2 copies of Obstructive Roadblock to shut down locations with repeatable activated abilities. Then, I'll add 1 copy of Hit List, which lets us snipe denizen cards from our opponent's hands, and 1 copy of Infiltration Plan, which is more expensive than Hit List, but lets us snipe cards of any type. These are great against combo decks whose entire game plan revolves around just 1 or 2 key pieces. Then, I'll add 1 copy of Termination Notice to give us some insurance against campaigns. And finally, 1 copy of Blast Bomb for its versatile removal ability. And there you have it! Congratulations on constructing your first Champions of Miyandir deck. All that's left to do now is to test it out in the game. You can connect with friends and play for free using the Champions of Miyandir browser app. If you don't already have a play group, you can find one easily on our Discord server. Links to both are in the video description. I hope to see you there. Bye bye for now.